Hello and welcome. I am Scrapperlock, and this is City of Heroes on the Rebirth server. We are with our level 47 character Quintessence Lass, who has 26.5 million XP earned, 3 million plus to go to get to level 48. Our next 3 enhancement slots, 53.7 million influence, and we just started a story arc for Unai Kemen. This is really weird. I did a mini arc with him that didn't have a book icon. It was just 3 or 4 missions in a row. As soon as it was done, it gave me a story arc that seemed like it was about the Path of the Dark and the Shadow Seed. I did one mission, and the arc ended. I actually recorded it, and I stopped recording because I said, what the heck is going on? We're back on a story arc? So I'm going to record this. I don't know if I'm actually going to post it. I feel like this might be kind of bugged. I don't know what's going on, so we'll just see. Um, and off we go. So, actually, in the last, I have to find 2 clues. In the last episode, or partial episode that I started recording, I was talking about sort of the future. We're potentially, assuming this is a real story arc that's going to last a while and isn't bugged, this, should get us a good chunk of the way into 47. We're going to do 1 arc per level. Then I'll get us to 48. We'll do another arc at 48, and then another arc at 49. And what I'll probably do is try to time it so I'm doing the arc kind of midway to the end of 49, so that you guys can see me level up to 50. I think it's, watching this whole playthrough. I hear a glowy. Watching this whole playthrough, I think you guys, kind of have a right to see us get to 50 and level cap. And so we'll do that. I'll try to time it right. Research team's notes. We found Portal Corporation's research notes on the Hydra Men. Don't know what arc this is. So we got about 3 more arcs to go in this character, and I guess what I said in the last part of the episode that I recorded and then stopped because the story arc ended. After that, I think that's it. I don't know that I'm going to record any more City of Heroes. I feel like I've done everything. I've done Stalker, I've done Brute now, Mastermind, and Scrapper. I really don't. I've done, all sides of the game. We've leveled up all the way through the villain side once, the hero side twice, and Praetoria, and the hero side once. And I really don't feel like there's that much more to do that we haven't done that I can do solo. Obviously, task forces and stuff would be group content, but I'm not going to record that, and I generally don't play it. And there aren't really new archetypes that I want to play. I kind of want to go back to Scrapper and Stalker and do some more Brute, and I don't feel like there's any reason to record that. You're not going to see anything different. My playstyle isn't going to change. And all that's going to be different is just the special effects of the Brute. To me, it's not really worth doing that. And I haven't thought of another game to record. So this may be the end of my recording for a while. I don't know. I had a couple of ideas of maybe some games, but nothing definite yet, and they're games that I would have to kind of try out. So I'm not going to mention any because I don't want to get anybody all interested in one and then I don't actually do it. Let's talk to Unai and see what he says. So he says, no scientists, huh? But a dimensional rupture the size of a Volkswagen. Well, Quintessence Lass, I think you know what I'm about to tell you. Portal Corporation scientists are lost somewhere within the multiverse. Okay, yeah, so I think this is a real story arc. So we're going to go look for their... so we're going to go talk to Dr. McIntyre, Tina McIntyre, and see if she can cook up anything to help us search for the missing guys. Yeah, speaking of games, I've been thinking about all sorts of different role-playing games. I think I've mentioned this, but there was a possibility of a team wipe in my D&D game, and people were preparing for it. And if there was a total party kill, what's going to happen next? And I actually think at this point, if there is a team wipe, or when the campaign ends or whatever, I think what I would say to my group is, if you guys want to keep playing D&D, someone else needs to game master. If you want me to keep being the game master, we're going to need to change games. And so I was thinking about, well, what other games would I suggest to them? There are many that I would like to play, and not enough time and too many role playing games. I kind of feel like, I feel sort of like my friend who's in all these different D&D games because he wants to play so much D&D, except unlike him, I don't want to get into a bunch of other D&D games. I would like to try to get into like a Savage Worlds game or a Call of Cthulhu game or something like that. Anyway, let's talk to Tina, and she says she's calling up a dimensional triangulator, and we're going to have to visit some dimensions and try to triangulate. So I'm guessing, since the people who programmed City of Heroes probably don't know a lot about navigation, that since it is triangulating, they're probably going to assume it means 3 points, which is like technically what triangulating means, but sometimes you need more than 3 points to actually triangulate. It depends on, like, triangulation works in 2 dimensions, but you need more points than that in 3 and 4 dimensions, and this is multi-dimension, so I don't know. Like, logically, because it's multi-dimensional, you might need to do more than triangulate, but I don't know if they thought that way when they were building this mission. I don't remember this story arc, rather. So yeah, anyway, back to other games, like role-playing games. I thought I've been thinking about, like, what else would I suggest to them. Um, and I've mentioned before, I thought about champions. That if my best friend weren't in the group, I would say, hey, we could do champions, and I just friggin' use the story arcs and missions from this game as inspiration. It wouldn't be, obviously it wouldn't be as grindy as a City of Heroes story arc, right? I would, these guys would get lost in dimensions, and you'd have to triangulate. And it'd be a couple of quick, it would just be a scenario. It wouldn't be like a story arc. It would be one scenario, and each session maybe they would do a quick jaunt to a dimension, and after being at 3 dimensions, they would find the scientists, and then there'd be, a battle to save the scientists or what have you. And there is our first one. Freak shows, eh? Let's have fun with these guys. Um, so champions, I could see working. It's almost 100% guarantee that my best friend would not want to play champions with me because he would not want to do 4th edition. One thing I actually thought of today as I was thinking about this, um, not that it really matters because I don't expect there to be any team wipes at this point anytime soon, and I suspect our campaign is going to go on for a long time, but it never hurts to think and be prepared. I thought, I don't have any particular major cool ideas for a homebrew champions world. But I thought, I could potentially use a pre-crisis DC Earth. I don't like post-crisis DC, and modern day DC can go jump in the lake, but I do like the pre-crisis DC universe. I could do something with that, something that's more like, Metropolis and so forth. And I mean, I would be perfectly happy. I feel like my best friend would not like this, but I would be perfectly happy to allow the players to even make up DC characters. You want to play Wonder Woman or Superman or Batman, that's fine with me. And you can easily make them up in Champions. You can make up anything in Champions. That's why I love it. Okay, why am I not finding this? There it is. So, and that would make it, it would be infinitely easier to just use DC than to try and make up all my own, NPCs and villains and cities and stuff like that. Although I always have wanted to do like a World War II Golden Age Champions. That always seemed like fun. But I feel like that one's probably not in the cards. That'd be the easiest one for me to do, but it's probably not in the cards. Another game obviously would be Savage Worlds, and with that I would And I've mentioned this before too, that I would use a Savage setting. Something like Deadlands or ETU would be required. I'm not going to like completely from scratch make up a whole homebrew of Savage Worlds just because I don't know the game, and it's just really hard to make up a homebrew when you're not familiar with the game really at all. Similarly, I could be very happy running Call of Cthulhu. I think I have to see if the game actually plays, but at least conceptually and thematically, since I am really enjoying Lovecraft. Um, I've read almost all of his works now. I'm down to the last three or four. Um, I think I could handle the thematic material. How the rules go, I don't know. And there are some very cool sounding um, modules or whatever you want to call it for Call of Cthulhu, and I would be interested in probably running those rather than trying to make up my own. But then another game that I hadn't really thought about, but has sparked my interest a little bit recently, is Star Trek Adventures. I've heard some really good stuff about it, and I actually started watching. Oops, didn't realize there was a bad guy over here. Oh, knives. Oh, this is going to be horrible. At +3. +3 knives are not going to be fun. +4 in this case. No, +3, sorry. I'm so used to being level 46. So, yeah, I was watching a playthrough. It's like a 3-episode one. I guess it's not a one-shot, but just a couple of short sessions. And it's this one guy who knows the game pretty well, and he's the GM, and he's sort of teaching 4 other people how to play who are various levels of Star Trek fans. And one of them is like somebody who cosplays. She was saying she goes to conventions, and like if she's going to be at the convention for 3 days, she'll bring like 6 costumes, and she'll like change once a day. Like wear 2 different ones a day. And she was dressed as a Vulcan for the actual recording, which is pretty cool. She had Vulcan ears and Vulcan hair and the eyebrows and everything. It was pretty awesome. And like the GM was wearing a Star Trek uniform, and so these guys were like geeking out, and I was kind of geeking out because I'm a huge Trek fan, and yeah, it made me think. I'm almost done watching the Wonder Woman TV show. I think when I'm done with it, I might see if I can purchase the original Star Trek series and just start going through watching Star Trek, and then do Next Generation. And yeah, I'm a big fan of both of those. So anyway, I was watching them make up characters, and like the character creation system seems pretty awesome, and the stats are really confusing. I don't know exactly how they work. I love it when I like get into a new game system and I don't know how the stats work. It's just so awesome to like learn that stuff. I like game systems. I like learning them, and like sort of learning how the developers did things and how the parts of the game work. I think it's super fun. I've always been a big fan of game design, and I love coming into a new game and not knowing exactly how the stats work, and just making stuff up that sounds cool. And you don't have to, because you don't know anything about the game balance and stuff like that. You don't even worry about min maxing in your build or anything. You just gotta do what sounds cool and fun and interesting, and it's often a much more fun way to play. I mean, like City of Heroes is a great example. When they didn't reveal any of the numbers to us, to some degree, I feel like that was almost like, for me, the golden age of City of Heroes, going back to another dimension now. When I didn't really know anything. I mean, I knew SOs are better than trainers, and DOs. DOs are better than trainers, SOs are better than DOs. But I didn't know how much better. I didn't know what the stats were. I wasn't capable of doing like an Uber build. You kind of couldn't do an Uber build in those days. But also, I didn't know enough to, and like, I didn't care. I was just having fun playing the game, and the build was irrelevant. I mean, it was almost like there was no such thing as a build. You're just taking cool powers because they sounded cool. And yeah, it was imperfect and inefficient. Like I took jump kick when I didn't need it in martial arts because there were so many kicks in martial arts. Why do you need another one? But it was just so fun to just play the game kind of fresh, not knowing all the details, and just giving your character the skills and abilities that you just kind of think sound cool and like maybe would work. And oh, that's just so much fun. So I don't know what all the stats meant and all the different abilities. There were some really cool aspects. I love that, like, as you're building your character, what they ask you to do is fill in a text field 3 or 4 times, just called values, where you just come up with a value for your character that's your own words. It's your own value, and the GM was really cool. One of the characters was like, oh, my character's sort of explorer, and she'll go out and like into dangerous situations and not really be cautious because she likes to like explore, and she wants to be like the first one on a planet, the first one to step on this planet, or the first one to fly into the star system. And he said, okay, so your value is where no one has gone before. I'm like, that is awesome. He just encapsulated it. So I actually went in. There's the company that makes Star Trek Adventures has a website where you can just Google for it and find it, where you can like they have a character creator where you can make up a character. And so I was making up a Vulcan, and I did two of the 4 values I selected were actual lines spoken by Mr. Spock in the show or in the movies. One was the needs of the many outweigh the needs of the few. I hear another glowy. There it is. And that is a Spock line, right? It's logic, as far as he's concerned anyway. And the other, which comes from the movie Star Trek 6, he's speaking with Lieutenant Valeris, who is a Vulcan and is his sort of subordinate on the Enterprise. And he says to her, I plan for you to replace me. This will be my last voyage on the Enterprise. And she says, I can only succeed you, sir, not replace you, right? I can only follow you, in other words. I can't actually replace you. And at one point in the conversation, he says to her, we must have faith. She's worried, and the whole premise of Star Trek 6 is that the Klingons' homeworld is dying, and they need help, and the Federation this is sort of the beginning of how the Federation and the Klingons became allies, which is what leads to, in Star Trek The Next Generation, Worf being a member of the Enterprise, right? Because the Star Trek 6 movie is set in the original show's time period, in the movie time period. And so a lot of people, including Valeris, are afraid of what it's going to mean to sort of incorporate Klingons into the Federation, because they have a very different value system and so forth. And there's a lot of fear. And Spock says, we must have faith. And she says, faith? Faith in what? And he says that the universe will unfold as it should. And she says to him, is that logical? And he looks at her and says, logic is the beginning of wisdom, not the end of it. So I had my character's value. Jeez, these quantum guys are like incredibly brutal. So I had my character's second value be logic is the beginning of wisdom, not the end of it. And so those are like and you can export your character sheet, and there on my character sheet under the values are 2 lines from Mr. Spock. Logic is the beginning of wisdom, not the end of it, and the needs of the many outweigh the needs of the few. And I was like, that is just really cool. And those aren't like skills you can pick. They're just phrases that you can give your character that summarize the values the character has. And apparently, in the gameplay, I guess if you try to do something that is in conflict with your values, I guess there is some mechanical penalty, I guess, that can occur, or you can change your values or what have you. And then if you do something that aligns with your values, I guess you get bonuses. And they were talking about in the show how if you come into a point where Starfleet regulations conflict with your values, that you then might have to make a choice, right? Am I going to follow Starfleet regulations, or am I going to go with my values, right? And of course, that happens all the time on the show, right? Where the Prime Directive says one thing, and the humanity of the characters says something else. And I thought, man, what a cool sounding game. And of course, the premise of Star Trek is really perfect for adventuring, because each adventure, like each session or every scenario, whatever you want to call it, would be the discovery of some new planet. And I thought, boy, would I love to. I mean, I think it would be fun to GM that, but man, would I love to play in that in that world, in that setting. I mean, ever since I was a kid, I was always a big fan of Mr. Spock. People sometimes ask, like, what would you want to be? Like, what's your favorite character, Mr. Spock? No question about it. And then, like, what position would you want to be on the crew? Again, no question about it. I would want to be a science officer on the bridge of a starship. It doesn't have to be the Enterprise, although obviously Enterprise is awesome. But I would love to be the chief science officer of a starship, or just a science officer on a starship who gets to work a shift on the bridge, right? I don't have to be the head of department, but I would love to work a shift on, like an 8-hour shift every day on the bridge of a Federation starship. That would be just super cool. I also noticed they have a Klingon supplement, and I thought, well, as much as I love, Vulcans and stuff, my second choice might very well be to be a Klingon on a Klingon vessel and like be planning to execute my superior officers so I can move up in rank. Okay, he says, I admire your gumption, Quintessence Slash. You stuck it out through all three brutal dimensions. Now it's just clicking on glowies, guy. Just to get us the data we need. I'll get to work on this, and with luck, we'll soon have the location of the missing scientist. So, does he have the data? Okay. Portal Corp has analyzed the data. Go extract them. So off we go. So those missions were quick because we didn't have to fight anybody, but I think this one we're going to have to do a lot of fighting because we're probably going to have to do an escort. With missions like this, I'm never going to remember them, right? Because it's been like 8 months since the last time I played this mission. And I played it twice in the last 2 years, so like there's so many missions I have no specific memory of most of them, unless it's something like the Scroll of Tieleco that I love. These outdoor mission ones, like these end game like Portal Corp outdoor mission ones, just because you just do them over and over again, they just all bleed, and they're all basically the same. They just all bleed together, and I can't tell one from another, to be honest. But the way these usually work, and I did it again, went to the wrong portal. The way these usually work is, I don't remember which ones have escorts and which ones don't. But the way I usually do this is, I don't think this will be an escort, but the way I usually do this is I try to find the first guy, see if I have to escort him out, and if I don't, then I know I don't have to escort the others. So this is all Devouring Earth. Okay, so here's our first one. We'll see if we have to escort him. I don't think we do. I actually don't remember ever escorting anyone on this map. Famous last words, of course. So if you are a Star Trek fan, if you like Star Trek, so that's 2 questions for you. First question is, who's your favorite character? One of the players actually said Q was her favorite character. And I have to respect that because Q was awesome. Mine is Spock. I do love Commander Data as well. I love both captains, Kirk and Picard. I like a lot of the characters. Big fan of Worf. I feel like the aliens, the non-humans, are like my favorites, which is kind of funny, obviously, since I'm a human. But I feel like my top 3 would be Spock, Data, and Worf. And I have a really hard time choosing between Data and Worf at number 2. Because I like the actors. I think Brett Spinner and Michael Dorn were amazing in their roles. But also, I thought I saw a glow over here. But also because I like their characters. Their characters are awesome. And to some degree, their characters are awesome because they were such great actors and they just owned those roles. I mean, Data, Brent Spinner played a perfect android, and if you're going to play an android in the Star Trek universe, you're going to have to do it like Brent Spinner, because he defined androids just like Spock defined Vulcans, and everybody who's ever played a Vulcan has tried to ape Leonard Nimoy's performance. And I think similarly, although a lot of people, including Christopher Lloyd, had played Vulcans before, the person who defined not Vulcans, Klingons before, the person who defined Klingons, much the way Leonard Nimoy defined Vulcans, was Michael Dorn. And every Klingon that's come after him has really had no choice but to kind of take their inspiration from his performance because it was so good. He was just so perfect. He had this great deep voice and this large stature, and you just could really believe that he was a Klingon. He owned that role. And I was not a fan of Klingons. I mean, I thought Klingons were good villains, but I didn't really like Klingons. I mean, my favorite villains were Romulans because they look like Vulcans, and I love Vulcans. And Romulans are basically anti-Vulcans. So I'm like, well, given how much I like Vulcans, I think, having the villains be anti-Vulcans is awesome. So Romulans have always been my favorite Star Trek bad guys. And I really never cared that much for Klingons. I always thought they were weird looking, and I just never really got them as like their culture, their warrior culture. I just never was into it. And then Michael Dorn came along with Worf, and now I love them because he was just so good at playing that character, and the show did such a great job of really getting into the Klingon culture. In fact, one of my favorite sort of storylines was the storyline when the Klingon Empire was going through its like civil war, and Picard was like called in to mediate it and stuff. That was just really cool. And I also really liked how the sort of very genteel, sophisticated, very human Jean-Luc Picard got the Klingons better than anybody else, and he earned their respect, which was just very cool. So I really enjoy Star Trek: The Next Generation. I'm going to need to rewatch that series, no question about it. So who's your favorite? Um, Lots of cool characters. Picard, a lot of people will name him. A lot of people are big fans of Riker. A lot of people are big fans of Dr. McCoy, Captain Kirk, of course, Scotty, Geordi LaForge. He was another awesome character. So there are so many good ones. You kind of can't go wrong. There are a lot of cool ones. So who's your favorite? And then the second question is, we'll actually do three questions. If you could choose a crew position on the Enterprise or on a starship, what would it be? Would you do engineering? Would you do science? Would you do medicine? Would you do command? Would you do helm, navigation, operations, security, shuttle pilot, transporter room operator? What would you do? What would your position be? What would your job be on the Enterprise if you could choose? So I guess a two-part question. What job would you want to do? And then what job do you think you would probably end up doing, which is not necessarily the same question. So what I'd love to do is be a science officer on the bridge of the Enterprise. What I would probably end up doing is being a red shirt who got killed in the first scene. So, yeah, there's always a disconnect between what you want to do and what you actually end up doing. I'd love to be a science officer, chief science officer of the Enterprise. What I'd probably be is the red shirt that got killed before the end of the first act. Okay, guys, let us talk to... how much time has gone by? Okay, we're 30 minutes, so this is where we're going to end this episode. Let's talk to Unai. Thanks for getting the scientists out. I only wish they were in better condition. I haven't been able to get a single straight answer out of them. They just keep saying things like the carrot ate my socks. Right, so these scientists have had, I think, parts of their souls ripped out. Spoiler alert, but you've seen that in previous episodes, or at least I've shown it. And we're going to have to go and get the rest of their souls back. But that will happen in another episode. So, until next time, folks, I am Scrapperlock. And this is City of Heroes on the Rebirth server.